Victor, sometimes I feel like I'm a guy who's in a rush. I can't slow down. Maybe I talk too fast and I'm just moving at 100 miles per hour. But then we get our guy on, Cam Inman, who was like, hey, we'll come on your show right now, House of Horns. We'll go on StreamYard, YouTube. But can I get a Twitter Spaces going? Can I get an Instagram Live? And I'm like, man, I felt overwhelmed. But Cam Inman is a pro, man. Definitely check out his work on TikTok, Instagram. Like this guy has 80,000 followers on Instagram. 58,000 followers on Twitter. So I don't want to say Cam Inman's age, but man, this guy's a youngster out there in the game, longtime vet, beat reporter, and then also doing the grind on social media. But Victor, Cam came on the show to talk about the 49ers, and I think we're now well informed after the interview.
No, we are. I want. There was a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, and I wanted to make sure I got them. The offensive line was key for me because of everything that I saw against the Broncos, and then Talanoa Hufanga was the other guy that I wanted to make sure that I got a question from him. So, and he gave us some great answers. And the other thing I took away from this is that man is a content king. Like, he knows how to get content out there, and so it was great to see him do maneuver everything. And it was a good, like, as a producer, like, it's something that it made me kind of be like, okay, I can use some of this, and now I can, like, throw it to you guys and see if you guys would want to do something like that. So yeah, it was awesome to see that.
Yeah, again, I don't know how Cam Inman does. It kind of makes me feel like whenever I'm complaining about how many things I have to do, I should probably be quiet and think about Cam. Like, what will Cam Inman do in the situation? Will you make that TikTok at 11 p.m.? What do you make that YouTube live? What do you make the IG live? Most of the time, Cam says yes.
Yeah. All right, let's segue over to, let me before we start with players to watch. We did leave before we got to Cam about Odell Beckham. Just briefly, to tell me what the latest is with Odell Beckham and the Rams.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering what's going on with all this flirting with Odell Beckham, and that's pretty much what it is. It's not really like an update, but it's just like the more they keep talking about it, the more okay, when is this gonna get done? And I think last week Jalen Ramsey spoke to us on Friday, and Gary Klein from the LA Times was like, hey, last time you played in Arizona, Odell Beckham had a great game. So Jalen started talking about, yeah, Odell was great in that game. And then, but he's like, he kind of slipped it in there. By the way, Odell Beckham come back. So they want every opportunity they have to say, Odell, we love you, want you back. They're using it. But then I saw Odell responded to somebody who mentioned Jalen Ramsey's what he said in the podium, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to come back too, man, but I'm not asking for much." So that lets me know it's a money thing, and good for Odo, man. Like, he's using his leverage. He's a great player, and this could be like a whole full segment, but I'll cap it here. But they really miss Odo Beckham's down the field threat. Like, you don't really think about Odo as like a burner, but he just makes plays down the field, and they're missing that whole aspect because CooperKupp is great intermediate, route runner who'll get you to the 10, 20 yards, but he doesn't get you to the 30, 40. Same thing with Allen Robinson. It will get you the jump balls and all that, but the deep kind of plays is Odell Beckham. So I think they're waiting for him to get healthy, and they're like saying like, "Hey, I know the Cowboys need people, the Packers need people, the Buccaneers are always looking for people," and they're just saying, "Hey, don't look that way. Be loyal to us." But that's up to the front office, Victor, for the money stuff.
No, and you set me up here as a players matchup to watch, because I'm gonna go first here, just going off of what you just said in terms of what they miss. And this offense looks really stagnant. They don't, they're missing, like you said, we talked about Van Jefferson. He's now on IR. They don't have Odell Beckham Jr. The other guy, Allen Robinson, isn't getting the ball, and for whatever reason, he just looks slower. Like, I don't know what it is. He just doesn't look the same like he did a few years ago. Maybe the injuries have caught up to him, but they need someone right down the middle. And I think the matchup for me, it's CooperKupp against Charvarius Ward here. I think we need to see a little bit of extension and separation, I should say, from CooperKupp, because we didn't see that much in the game against the Cardinals. And that's where I'm gonna go with my player matchup to watch, is because I want to see a little bit more separation, and maybe that gets the offense going for the Rams. And so for me, that was the player matchup that I wanted to see, because I need to see a little bit more from this offense, and I think it starts with CooperKupp. What about you?
Yeah, I want to just touch on what you said real quick because it's funny to me how like in training camp, and I think I already said this before, but I'm so annoyed about it. Remember when they were considering 7, 8 wide receivers? Like this position is
Exactly.
loaded. They're gonna get 8 receivers because they're so good, and then like only maybe one is just contributing is CooperKupp, obviously, and then obviously it's still early for Allen Robinson. And by the way, like my story is going to come out. This story is going to come out, I think, Saturday. And it's pretty much the Rams offense against that 49ers stout defense. And I'm setting myself up here, but I spoke to
There you
Allen
go.
Robinson one-on-one in the locker room. And, usually kind of Allen Robinson plays a little safe because I think he's used to the Chicago media, like really like going after
Yeah,
you. And
poking at him, right?
yeah, and he's programmed to say kind of like safe comments. But when I got him one-on-one, he started opening it up. I'm like, and he was dwelling on certain plays, like, man, we almost had that one. We had this one. So obviously they're still trying to figure out that phase, that adjustment phase. So, you're on to something there, Victor, with the whole CooperKupp thing. Because like if CooperKupp is not doing his work, usually it could go down the wayside very quickly. So it wasn't the best CooperKupp game last week, but he had the rushing touchdown. He still made an impact, and this guy's such a great blocker that he finds ways to contribute. But speaking of blocking, Victor, my player matchup to watch, that story that I'm talking about between the Stafford and Nick Bosa element, it's pretty much on the tackles. Rob Havenstein, the right tackle, and left tackle Joe Noteboom. How do you deal with Nick Bosa? And there's Eric Armstead too, and to deal with, Victor. And with the whole injuries here, it hasn't been an issue on the offensive line the last 2 weeks because Ben Skoranek has stepped up as a fullback wide receiver. Okay, that's another guy's contributing. It's not as a receiver per se, and he got 66 receiving yards,
Yep.
Victor. And shout out to that guy because a lot of people, when they were dealing with the roster, camp battle stuff, like people kept saying, why is Ben Skoranek going to make the 7 or 8? Put somebody else on there. Now we know why. But Ben has been helping out with the banged up offensive line as being an extra blocker, and they're really out by CooperKupp being a great blocker too. People don't give enough credit, I feel like. Hopefully my wife is not down, Victor, because I see the little bars here. But in terms of that, when they played the Falcons, it wasn't Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead. It was Grady Jarrett and some guys, and so they got by. And then last week against the Cardinals, like JJ Watt, this hasn't been the real JJ Watt, and there's a reason why the Cardinals only had 1 sack going into that game because the rest of the front hasn't done much. So they've gotten by against these fronts that lack some depth. That's not gonna be a thing for the 49ers. They got a bunch of dudes, man. And when I was talking to the tackles, like I spoke to David Edwards, the left guard, and I spoke to Rob Havenstein, the right guard, in the locker room, and they kept just giving me names after names. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start looking in that film of this guy. Like they know
Yeah.
how deep this 49ers front is. So and even the linebackers are great too. So
Yeah, that front seven, man, and which I'm gonna talk about later, like in some of our in some of our other segments. I mean that front seven. I mean there's no holes in this defense at all. Like I don't know where you attack them, but I'll get to it. But I just wanted to kind of go
yeah.
off of what you were saying. Yeah, they're loaded, man.
And pretty much, I don't want to give away my whole story, but it is one of my matchups to watch. Like they're gonna have a long day with those guys, and especially Nick Bosa playing out his mind, which he usually does. But the pretty much I'll end it with this. Matthew Stafford was just saying like we got to be creative. We can't be predictable because they're gonna come at you with constant pressure. So we'll see what they do. But check out the story for a little more insight on the OC Register LA Daily News website. Plug.
Yeah, there you go. No, and you're right on it, man. Because like and it keeps going. Like even Cam Inman talked about Kinlaw right up the middle, man. That guy is huge, and like he's finally kind of living up to that potential of what they wanted to see it when he got drafted in the first round.
The
So
one
that's
blogger called them out, Victor. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't want to get to that too, but yeah, like that guy blew up too. But yeah, no, it and like and there's other guys like I think his name is Brian. I forget his name. He had a sack against the Broncos, and they don't even blitz, man. They don't even need to blitz. That's how good they are. But let's get to our X factors for this game. Do you want to go first, or you want me to go first? What do you?
Okay, I could take this. I was just putting up some stats real quick here, Victor, because for my matchup to watch, I want to answer the question from Eduardo, who we gave a shout
Okay.
out at the beginning of the show. And
Okay.
Eduardo, man, you're on it, man. You watched the video. I know it was 3 minutes long, but he watched, subscribed, and gave us a question, and he's officially entered in the AaronDonald giveaway. It's kind of funny to say it's only been one person, but you're in the lead, Eduardo.
Yeah.
And the question was, will Cam Akers get 100 rushing yards on the San Francisco 49ers? And that's going to be very tough to do. But the reason why I was looking up some stats, because I'm not really a analytical guy, analytics numbers guy, but I do like checking Football Outsiders for DVOA because their metric is
I was
about
gonna
efficiency.
say you're not in on the whole DBOA and all that stuff.
No,
And
I like that they make it simple. Like, it's like, okay, you put everything together for a category and it becomes a DVOA. I'm still not even sure what the metrics are, whatever. It's like PFF. I can't say it, Pro Football Focus. Sorry,
right,
their grades. Like, even though they're not really they're not really a letter grade. They're numbers, but whatever. I don't know what
right.
they mean, but they have a reputation for telling you this is how they stand, this is what they do. So I was trying to check out the Rams rushing defense DVOA, and they were fourth, which is a little surprising because they gave us some big yards to the Bills, but they've been very efficient about it. And then just a spot ahead, number 3, San Francisco 49ers are third in rushing defense DVOA. So it could be a long day for Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson overall to get 100 yards. But I could see Cam Akers being productive, and I'm already blanking. Yeah, because this is the
Cam
X
Akers.
Factor, right? It wasn't players to
Yes,
watch.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, X Factor.
Let
Yeah,
me look at the category, but X Factor. So I'll say it this way. Okay, now that I know it's an X Factor, I don't think Cam Akers will get 100 rushing yards. But look what he did last week. He didn't need 100 rushing yards. He had
nope.
66 rushing yards. He made an impact. He gave a spark. He had a burst. He pretty much was showing what he was, at least to my face, showing what he was doing in training camp. Like, he had the extra burst. He had the threat of actually taking one to the house, and he did for that rushing touchdown for 14 yards. But it wasn't a crazy 120 yards rushing. So in terms of an X factor, I think he could be productive. And that's a part of the thing about being creative, Victor, what Matthew Stafford was saying, like, hey, you can't just sit back there for 5 seconds and throw the ball down the field. You need some rushing yards. And I think Cam Akers will provide it. It won't be 100 yards, but it will be enough to kind of, just mix it up and have some balance.
No, and I like your pick there because I mean in that third quarter he was a difference. Like we talked about during the post game show, he took over that game in the third quarter. Yeah, he had the fumble, but in that third quarter when they really needed a spark, he's the one that provided the spark. So I can see that, and they're gonna need it against a really good, a stout defense. For me, it's gonna be the linebackers. It's gonna be Bobby Wagner and Ernest Jones, either one of them. One of the things that I was kind of doing some research on this, and I noticed that the way Kyle Shanahan has been able to be 6-0 before the championship game against Sean McVay was because he was able to expose the weakness of the Rams defense because they didn't have really good linebackers. Well, now they do, and and you add the fact that Trent Williams isn't going to be there for the 49ers, and a banged up young offensive line like Cam Inman told us about. I think this is where those linebackers are going to kind of eat in this game, and this is where they're going to make a big difference. I think they're going to have to double team AaronDonald, and guess who's going to be there? Bobby Wagner and Ernest Jones to pick up some the running game. And I don't think the running game is going to do well for the Niners because they're like Cam Inman talked about, they're still young and they're having problems, getting used to Jimmy Garoppolo because he wasn't even there during the offseason. So that's the other thing. So for me, that's who the X factor is going to be, are those linebackers, not that they actually have legit linebackers.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Victor, because I actually spent the last couple hours before I came on writing about Bobby Wagner because going off of PFF. There we go. I said it better this time.
There you go.
I just saw like the grade for Bobby Wagner was like at 84.3. I'm like, oh, that's his best one of the season, and I was okay, well, what is he doing differently? And I started talking to Terrell Lewis, the outside linebacker for the Rams. He's like, he's getting comfortable now. Like he's always been around the ball, Bobby Wagner, but now he's playing, without thinking about it because he has to worry about the scheme. I'm new here. Call the play. Is this guy in the right spot? Now he doesn't worry about that. He's being comfortable. Now he can make plays faster. And I think that's what Bobby Wagner is doing. And that's a great point, Victor, because Bobby Wagner is new to the rivalry. He was brought in. Like, I think Bobby Wagner wanted to join the Rams, but when he said, hey, come after me. I know you lost some money you still have money from the Von Miller missing out there. The Rams were like, didn't hesitate because like, oh, we could fill this void here of the Kyle Shanahan problem that we have every single year. And I think Bobby Wagner will get to show that. And that's my story coming out, which is Friday. Yeah, Friday. I'm losing days, track of the days. Friday, Bobby Wagner at the OC Register, how he's getting comfortable in this game and why he was brought in for these moments like Monday Night Football.
I think part of the thing that's messing you up is it's on a Monday and we're like a day behind now because of it. So
it's supposed to be Wednesday today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I even had our mutual friend Alonzo hit me up about, hey, when are you putting out the podcast? And like, I'm used to it on Wednesday.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, let's get to keys to the game. Do you want to go first, or you want me to start that off for us?
Yeah, no, I'll go quickly here on the keys to the game because I already mentioned Terrell Lewis. I feel like get a little more pass rush going for these guys, especially Jimmy G. He's not okay. Let's be real. He doesn't have the highest ceiling. He doesn't have a lot of physical gifts, but you know what he does well? He gives his playmakers the ball where it needs to be. He gives them opportunities to make plays. DeeboSamuel, George Kittle. So put pressure on Jimmy G not to react that quickly, and because he kind of has muscle memory. He's been in this scheme for a long time. I know he struggled last week, but maybe another week he'll figure out what he used to do. So don't allow Jimmy G to give it to his players. Terrell Lewis had a nice sack last week against the Cardinals, and I was very impressed with it. And I think he had a couple more plays he kept telling me he wanted to go and get back. But if he's doing well, if you're getting pressure with AaronDonald, I know he's more interior guy, but if you get Justin Hollins to contribute more, and obviously Leonard Floyd and Takk McKinley, then that could go bode well for this defense overall.
No, yeah, and I agree. I mean that's where I think they need penetration outside of because AaronDonald's going to open up things for you, and so where you can create some of that pressure without having a blitz with Bobby Wagner and Ernest Jones is you can use some of the guys on the outside there to be able to put some pressure on Jimmy G because he's not going to move around like you talked about. So you want to be able to keep him inside the pocket there, and then maybe pours him into another safety. Maybe he runs out of the end zone again or
to
something.
end racism, right?
Yeah, exactly. But for me, this game comes down to Matthew Stafford. Like, are we gonna get the game manager that we saw against the Cardinals? I think that's gonna be the key. If we get that, because these two defenses are too good. You're not going to be able to move the ball like you're used to. You're not going to be able to push the ball against the 49ers defense. They're loaded everywhere. And so if you're able to manage this game and if he doesn't turn the ball over, you take this as the win for the Rams. And so for me, I think the key is for Stafford and to manage this game and just get through it, man. Like as long as you're not the one giving points to the 49ers, you should be good in this game because I think the Rams defense can take care of some of that for you, and they can cause some of the turnovers. You don't want to be the one who gives the ball away. And we've seen the other thing that we've noticed is that teams aren't blitzing him like this year. He's like the lowest blitz quarterback in the league, and that's because they know that he's really good at when he gets blitzed, and so they're just like they're letting him be surveyed. Because the other thing we talked about, the whole Del Beckham thing, they don't have dudes who can cross some of those routes and kill you. They're pretty much they're gonna give CooperKupp some of those yards inside, and that's it. They're not gonna let him beat you deep. So until you get some of those guys healthy, I think you're gonna have to win these games by letting Matthew Stafford manage games.
Yeah, and the other thing too, like the offensive line is banged up, so like they're not having the cleanest game. So if you get pressure with four guys, you play zone defense. That's the way they're going to attack. They're not going to blitz when they don't need to. But the key thing, Victor, here, just to go off of what you said, is like you can't do what you did last week, where you get into the red zone or goal to goal situation and you settle for field goals or whatever. I think they were maybe in the red zone 3 times and they didn't get a touchdown. So the one touchdown came out that maybe that was the Cam Akers one was, but when they were in goal to goal situation a couple times and they didn't get it. So when you're in that area, go ahead and get a touchdown instead of field goal because you don't get many opportunities against the 49ers.
No, and they're gonna make you punt. I mean, look, the guy last week that should have been the MVP of the game should have been the Broncos punter because that guy kept putting the ball
Yeah.
inside the 10-yard line instead of Russell Wilson, who ended up getting the game ball for whatever reason. But yeah, like field position is also going to be huge in this game too. So, but yeah, you're right, man. Like it's going to come down to that. Like you need to score when you're in the red zone touchdowns. Let's get to our fantasy football and betting spotlight. Let's start with
Mhm.
betting here. The Rams come in as a plus 1 point. The Niners are at 1.5 point favorites, so I just put the plus 1.5 for the Rams, and then the over under. Like I said, even Vegas thinks there's not going to be many points scored because the over under is 42, and then if you bet on the Rams, you're at plus 102. How are you betting this, or how would you bet this
Yeah, I want
game?
to I want to say we both got the over wrong last week, right? It was an under game. It was pretty low
Yeah,
scoring. So we beat the spread though at least, so that was
yeah.
good. But yeah, I the Rams being it's funny, Victor. I'm gonna get into it when I get the prediction, but like I usually kind of wait to like really get into predictions because I want to hear what you have to say and then kind of bring it together with my notes. So uh, after we went through, I'm like, do the Rams deserve to be the underdog? I know the 49ers are going through their injuries and all that, and they're at home too, but I don't know. I think it's also kind of a pick 'em too, so maybe it doesn't matter. But I don't know if the Rams feel like the underdogs. I'll say that before I get my prediction. And yeah, I will probably go the under here because these teams like to play like this gritty, old school dogfight rivalry. So yeah, maybe the under is here gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I hit the under on this one. I don't know where you're going to get points from. Like I said, I think a defensive touchdown might win it in this game, or maybe it's going to be a field goal game where it's like 9-6 or something because these defenses are really good. And like I said, we talked about earlier with the Niners offense, where are they going to get their points? Jimmy G wasn't there the whole offseason, and he's trying to get into it. And yeah, he knows the offense and everything, but you're going from a guy that was a mobile quarterback to someone who needs to stand in the pocket. That and then you're bringing in new linemen. So for me, it's gonna be I'm gonna hit the under here, and then we'll talk about our predictions, and we'll talk about. But I mean, it just seems weird here that the Niners are the favorite by only
Yeah,
1.5. You would think it would be at least 3 points because you get three as a home team. So it
yeah,
seems more like they're giving more respect to the Rams than they are the Niners here,
that's
which is
true.
kind
Yeah,
of
it's only
yeah.
1.5, and then yeah, you get three already. So you're right. And then the whole Trent Williams thing, you would think with that you would think the Rams would be for sure a minus here.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our fantasy player. Do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
I'll take this, and I don't know how much thought I put into it because these are always hard because you can't
Yeah.
pick CooperKupp, like that's too easy, and then
Yeah.
you try to kind of switch it up. You don't want to pick the same player 2 weeks in a row. Uh, but you know how Allen Robinson had a stinker the first week, came back and did well the second week. I will say he has that same theme, a clunker in week 3, and he'll come back and he'll have a nice performance in week 4 for Monday Night Football. Allen Robinson is new to the rivalry, man, so he's gonna be probably excited to contribute.
And he's someone you can throw the ball down in the end zone, like for jump balls. I can see that, so he's a good option for me. Honestly, I'm taking the way out here. I'm taking the Rams defense. Like,
Hey,
hey, get your points here because you're not. This is the best way you can go if they're all available and stream. Go get them right now, which I doubt, but yeah, you're going with the Rams defense at this point because there's not that many options here. I mean, like you said, we can go CooperKupp, we can go, Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson. But for me, the easy way out here is taking the Rams defense in this situation.
I like that.
Yeah, let's go to game predictions. How are you seeing how do you see this game coming out?
Yeah, I was kind of making fun of Sean McVay in my story today. He's like, yeah, like he refused to say like these games are all the same, like, but they feel like they're all the same. He's like, no, each game is different. I'm like, well, like they always feel like there's smash mouth football, old school, but whatever, Sean McVay. But I'm gonna keep going with that theme there. And the biggest thing we touched on, Victor, was like, yeah, the passing, for the 49ers is struggling right now. They can't get their playmakers involved. They're going from Trey Lance or Jimmy G, and it's throwing everything off. And they haven't cracked 200 yards passing in a game this year, so their air attack is not doing well. But they always do well in rushing. I think they're averaging 151 rushing yards per game. I think they were a little off last week, but with the first 2 weeks they went off. So they still have that element. But you said it, Victor, earlier in this episode. They have Bobby Wagner and they have a second year Ernest Jones, and they don't have Trent Williams to help out with that, that rushing attack. That is where I lean with the Rams, because I wanted to go 49ers. I felt like, okay, they're at their house. They've beaten the Rams 3 years in a row at Levi Stadium. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback because they just play each other tough. It doesn't matter who's on the field pretty much. So, but when you think about that, and I know the Rams are also banged up, but I feel like this defense is gonna do well. Maybe with Matthew Stafford might have a problem with Nick Bosa. That was why I was gonna go maybe with the 49ers, because the Nick Bosa element is probably terrifying for Matthew Stafford. but
Yeah.
but you think about all the elements here. So I'm gonna go still old school, low scoring affair, but I'm gonna go with the Rams again, 17-14. Obviously they're underdogs, so they cover just by winning.
All right. Well, we're finally gonna have our first disagreement
Oh,
here.
here we go.
I
Okay.
think, I think you covered it at the end there. Like I kept like as much as I wanted. Like I broke everything down. Like I did this whole episode, and one of the things I still came back to was Kyle Shanahan owns Sean McVay in the regular season, and
Yep.
that still had. And I think it doesn't change. It just, for me, when I looked at this, it was he's still going to find a way to run the ball somehow, and he's going to make sure that he doesn't make the same mistake he made with Jimmy G against the Broncos, and he's going to make sure he becomes a game manager, kind of like what I talked about with Stafford. For him to be, for the Rams to win the game, that was my key. For I think what actually happens here is Shanahan's going to actually employ it with Jimmy G, and they're going to be able to run the ball like you talked about, and I think they're going to pull out the win. For me, I have it as a 13-10 game. It's
Wow.
going to be low scoring, like super low scoring. I don't see how they score. Like, I think a defensive touchdown is going to win it for the 49ers. Somewhere, some way, they're going to come up. That defense, like, I looked at two of the games, and they're just fast, man. They like, as soon as they cover so much ground so fast, like, it's just suffocating. You're watching it and you're like, the guy looks like he has a bunch of room, and all of a sudden it just closes, and you're just like, how the heck did they get there? And that's the kind of defense that they have. And we knew, and people have talked about this, they have a Super Bowl winning defense. The thing is, can their offense hold up? And I think, for at least for this game, they do. Like I said, 13-10 is what I'm going to go with.
Yeah.
But before we go, give us your final thoughts, or can you
Yeah.
plug some
Well,
of your story?
I just wanted to say, going off of yours, I was thinking like, man, you think only the Rams are going to get only 10 points, but it was a couple of weeks ago they got 10 points against the Bills, and that defense is not as good as the 49ers even, and they're on the road. So it's a bold one, Victor, but I'm glad we're finally disagreeing here. I thought 17-13 was low scoring, but you got 13-10. But yeah, I wanted to lean heavily on the 49ers, but I just couldn't figure. I just don't think what I saw on offense last week. I just like, can they do it? I think the Rams can at least score more than those guys. It could be a low scoring, but again, we'll find out
And
who
it's a
what.
rivalry game.
Yeah,
And
so
it's a rivalry
it
game.
doesn't matter who's at quarterback, to be honest. So you're right there, Victor. That's going to be intriguing. But overall, Another good show with Cam Inman joining us to break down the 49ers. Again, we have the AaronDonald giveaway T-shirt. Check out the video for the rules there. Just comment House of Horns or give us a question, whatever. Just make sure you're subscribed. We want to get to 250 subscribers, but I pretty much plug a bunch of stories. My Monday story for the preview will be pretty much on the rivalry between Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. I'm sure it's been done 130 times, whatever, but I'm gonna try to find a new wrinkle to it because it's always a fun topic to talk about. Because like you mentioned, Kyle Shanahan has owned Sean McVay, but Sean McVay got the best of him in the NFC title game.
when
That's
it
all that
mattered.
matters. And then also Kyle Shanahan was, pretty much his boss in Washington with his dad. So it's just a fun kind of story to revisit. I've never written the story, so I thought, okay, why not? So I know I'm rambling here, but thank you guys for watching House of Horns. If you're reading my stories on OC Register, thank you for that. If you're following my work on Twitter, and we're trying to help you guys out with giving you an AaronDonald t-shirt. But Victor, is there anything I missed here before we say goodbye?
Nah, man, make sure you go and check out all his stuff. We're gonna have a post game show for you guys following the game on Monday night. I don't know how we're gonna do it with Gilbert and Santa Clara at Levi Stadium, but he's gonna give us 10 to 15 minutes. Last week he was gracious enough to give us 20 somehow, and they wanted to kick him out, but that's that story's for another day. But thank you for listening and for watching, and like Gilbert keeps saying, man, thank you, for checking out his stories, because he does put a lot of work into this, and he's there giving you guys as much content, especially those interviews. Those post games interviews are big, and they do really well. So you lead us out of here, Gilbert.
Yeah, and I just want to say, we're gonna go live after the game. But if you can't stay up that late, I know, Victor, you're not a late person, but I'm forcing you now to be for this game. You can always watch it on YouTube. Just look it up on their or uploads or live streams and get it there. So I know more people are hearing about us and watching our work. Thank you for that, and hopefully you enjoy it. But on that note, it's on the Monday Night Football. Santa Clara, not San Francisco. Ya nos vamos, pues vámonos.